Sparks. I'm Carol Monroe. I'm Director of Walt Disney World Public Relations, and I am thrilled to host a panel discussion this morning that we're calling The Story Behind New Fantasyland. You know, it takes a village to do just about anything these days, and that is the case with New Fantasyland. A lot of very, very talented people, very dedicated people, have put years and years into the planning and making of this land that we have enjoyed and will continue to enjoy for generations to come. And I am thrilled to welcome as my guest this morning to engage in a little Q&A about the story behind Fantasyland, Chris Beatty, Creative Director of New Fantasyland, Walt Disney Imagineering. As I said, Chris is currently the Creative Director for the Magic Kingdom Fantasyland expansion. As Creative Lead, he's responsible for leading the creative team in developing the vision and implementation of the largest expansion in the park's history. Chris is also part of the Creative Blue Sky team at Walt Disney Imagineering. That's a dedicated group who dream up concepts for the attractions, shows, and entertainment for Disney parks and resorts. And during the Blue Sky process, the possibilities and opportunities are endless, have no limits. So we're glad to have Chris join us today. And I'd also like to welcome Mary Beth Visionary. Mary Beth is Vice President, Food and Beverage, and Merchandise Operations Integration. She wins the Tide Filthy Award for longest title on the panel this morning. A lot of responsibility there. And as Vice President of Food and Beverage and Merchandise line of business, she leads a team that focuses on new and existing businesses, both domestic and international, for Walt Disney Parks and Resorts. And their vision is to create memorable food and beverage experiences that strengthen the Disney brand and to deliver the best entertainment shopping experience in the world. Now, I call that a vision. And this includes driving concept and product development for all food and beverage initiatives, ranging from facility design, menu offerings, strategies in support of our corporate platforms, such as sustainability, which is something we're very proud of, as well as health and wellness. Welcome, everybody. And last but not least, a very special person who quite literally has grown up in the Magic Kingdom. Phil Holmes is Vice President of the Magic Kingdom Park. Phil started his career delivering blueprints to construction sites at the Magic Kingdom prior to its opening. He officially joined the Walt Disney Company as a member of the opening team as an attractions host, and 8 roles, 18 locations, and almost 30 years to the date, he returned to the Magic Kingdom, the place where it all began. And today, his focus is carrying on the traditions of our company that he learned throughout his 41 years of service. So we'll hear much more about that from Phil, and much more about how he conceived New Fantasyland and all the wonderful things that you guys have already experienced just in the past 24 hours. And when we're done with our Q&A, it'll be very conversational. We'll open the floor up for questions as well. And then if any journalists have any specific questions they'd like to ask in more of a one-on-one format, we'll try to accommodate that if we have some time remaining at the end of our session. So to kick things off, Chris, I'll throw this one out to you. What was the inspiration for the entire New Fantasyland expansion?
You know, it's, many of you have probably heard me say this before, it's quite an honor to get to, you know, not just work within the Magic Kingdom, but also work within Fantasyland. I mean, I think your trip to the Magic Kingdom is just sort of defined by those moments within Fantasyland, and you know, riding on Dumbo for the first time, getting your picture taken, you know, or walking through Cinderella's castle. Those are memories that last forever. And so, as Imagineers, for our team, it was pretty daunting. You know, I think when Bill called and said, "Hey, why don't we double Fantasyland? What do you think that could be?" And I remember that. that day. That's quite a phone call. And so I think the inspiration, it came from a bunch of places. Walt, you think back to Walt and Disneyland in 1955, and when Walt, they first built Disneyland, Fantasyland was really a place where he wanted his guests to walk, through that plane and step into those animated features, ride a caterpillar in Wonderland, fly with Peter Pan in a galleon over Neverland. He wanted guests to be able to go on those journeys with his animated characters. And I think that's where we started. We said, that's the heart and soul of Fantasyland is about. It is getting, as a child, all of us is getting to go upon that journey and step through that, break the plane of the stream. So the inspiration was really looking back to Walt and what his inspirations were when he created Disneyland. And then from there it really becomes aspirational. Where do we want to take our guests? Where do our guests want to go? What are those journeys, today with our modern fairy tales, where would they like to journey to? And so we think about all those things, and there's really, all those things inspire us as we start the concept.
And Phil, I bet you probably have an interesting perspective to that same question, the inspiration for New Fantasyland.
Yeah, Chris is certainly spot on as far as kind of the overarching goal. When you go into blue sky, you literally do start with a blank sheet of paper, which is fantastic. The other thing that's really great with our company is creatively, certainly Chris and his team are at the forefront, but they bring everybody along on the journey. So I think, it's great for us that eventually we'll be the ones that are going to inherit and get a chance to operate it, to be at the very early stages of the conversation. Because candidly, what we try and make sure we always do is listen to our guests. And I think, the thing that continues to resonate is, I think more than ever before, our guest expectations become very loud, very clear, and we can be even more specific of where some of the needs might be. And that could be very much within the spirit of what you saw, in the last day or two. So it could be a spectacular, restaurant like Be Our Guest, or it could be a spectacular experience like the Enchanted Tales of Belle. So I think along with kind of the inspirations that flow through the company and the creative process, at the heart of it though, we want to continue to always listen to our guests.
How long did it take to really start the project? And I know there are a lot of people involved, but can you guys give us a sense of the scope of the number of disciplines and the different types of disciplines that it took to create New Fantasyland? Going back to that opening statement, it takes a village.
Well, I know within Walt Disney Imagineering we have 140 different disciplines. So we're probably the most diverse group, one of the smallest groups, believe it or not, within the Walt Disney Company. And almost every one of those 140 disciplines touched this project in some way. I mean, think about lighting designers and area development designers, project managers, engineers, storytellers, writers, directors. It takes an amazing group of people really working together to continue the storytelling. That is just on the Imagineering side. Phil mentioned this a second ago, the partnership between the two teams, the Mary Beth's teams. That's a whole other group of people that join in at the very beginning of the project, really to help continue that storytelling and add to it. So thinking back, I can even tell you how many different disciplines, if you add all these groups together, it is an incredible number of people.
And you talk about storytelling, and the food obviously enhances the storytelling of New Fantasyland. So Mary Beth, this question is for you. What was the process of creating the menus at Be Our Guest restaurant? And we'll talk more about Be Our Guest because talk about, I call that a restaurant that's also an attraction.
Right. It most definitely is. Well, first of all, it starts with a great product. So Chris's team develops this idea, and we get involved from the very beginning to make sure that they're immersed. Because you want the experience to really be fitting for how beautiful the room is. So we knew it was a fright. We went watched the movie many, many times and really thought we would, go right to the level of what would they eat if they were there. And how do you get a real French-inspired menu that is not only interesting and fun, but that people really want to dine in. And we thought about food and beverage as an experience, but it's also an attraction as well. So every piece and part of what we did, from the beverage to the food, was to be as immersive as was the actual beautiful product.
What have you observed about guests who enter Be Our Guest restaurant and how they are reacting to not only the menu, but the sense of place that it brings? You are inside Beast's castle.
From my perspective, it's been the most fantastic experience of anything we've ever built. It is so much fun to just sit back and watch people walk in. Now, it's a little hard to get people to their tables because it's way more enjoyable to walk around and see all the beautiful things that are there, but I really feel like people walk in and feel like they are in Beast Castle. So that is such a great experience from the minute they enter that restaurant until the minute that they leave.
I would agree. It's to stand there and just watch people's faces and literally their jaws drop when they walk in. Just the grandeur of that space. And we don't be popular. We were actually talking about this earlier. We're like, oh, I really didn't know if we this big. It is great. And I think you said it best. It does become an attraction. It really does.
And there's a little more going on at the Our Guest restaurant because we've actually instituted a first there in terms of, it's a different restaurant experience by day than it is by night. You want to tell us about that?
So this is our first ever flex restaurant, so that during the lunchtime period, it is a fast casual, but during the evening hour, it turns into a table service. We've never done that before. And our guests have received that so well. So as you enter in, you're given a matched rose, and this rose will help you to do your ordering, and then you bring that rose to your table, and it tells the kitchen where you are seated and where they are to deliver the food that you've ordered. It's just a completely magical experience and one that we've never done before and is being so well received. But really what it does is it allows the guests to actually enjoy their family or whoever they're there with. Instead of worrying about where are my kids, where's the rest of my family, how do I get a table, and just really enjoy it. And then again, in the evening hours, it's a little bit more relaxed and the cuisine is even more enhanced than at the lunchtime period.
Okay. Well, I know that everyone has heard the additional news about the Our Guest restaurant, an enhancement to the menu that also has never been done before at a Magic Kingdom restaurant, and that is the addition of alcohol to the menu. What was that like, making that decision? Was it an easy decision to make, and how did that come about?
No, not at all. We have done a lot of guest research groups, and we do that with every new concept that we develop. And out of those research groups that we've been talking to, it was something that was coming up time and time and again. But we would never just add alcohol to any concept in the Magic Kingdom. In this particular case, it made sense because it was a very French-inspired location. And you can't go somewhere in France without being able to order that glass of wine or that beer. We made sure it made sense because it's French-inspired, so the selections were very carefully thought about. But we also made sure to think about that with our non-alcoholic base as well. And so far, it's been extremely well received. But our guests are more sophisticated than ever before about dining. So their palates have changed, their education around food and beverage has changed, and we need to change with that.
And then speaking of non-alcoholic offerings, LeFou's Brew appears to be a hit. Has everyone here had a chance to sample LeFou's Brew? What do you think? You like it? Well, I personally loved it. And I thought it was an interesting concoction. Any fun stories of how that came about?
Well, many different lattes, we've tried many different combinations. And what's interesting is you have to understand the palate of a child versus the palate of an adult, because I know what my 3 kids like to drink are not always the same as what I like to drink. So we really have to try and test different things. But in this particular case, it's been even better received than we ever expected. To make sure it was light and refreshing, not too heavy on the calories, but also a really fun drink to want to walk around. And we're finding that adults like it as much as children, so it's been a great experience.
I hope everyone had a chance to walk through all of New Fantasyland last night, including Storybook Circus. And when you walk through the land, there are such distinct areas. And I know in just having conversations with our Imagineers, placemaking is something we really focused on, whether it's Belle's Village or Ariel's Grotto, even the new Castle Gates or Storybook Circus. Let's talk a little bit about that. What thought went into developing these specific areas and the concept of an enchanted forest to kind of, envelop it all?
You start to look at, what are the story threads? What are those, like I said, what are those immersive, aspirational places you would like to visit? And when you really start looking at our classic fairy tales, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, Beauty and the Beast, The Little Mermaid, they almost all have a forest. And we really didn't want to create more of the Fantasyland than we had the original Fantasyland. We love the look of that. We love the pageantry of it. We love the finish of that land. But we thought, wow, if we're doubling the land, we really should maybe take our guests to even another place, give another texture, another palette for them to go and explore. So once we started looking at the films, we started talking about, well, what lands would we, or stories would we like to really develop? That's the forest kept coming back up and up again and again and again. It was like, wow, that's a great place. I mean, being able to go outside the castle wall and wander down that path and in the shadow of the beast castle and the woods on both sides of us. And oh, there's nestled the little Snow White's cottage or the dwarf cottage. And oh, there's Maurice's cottage. That excited us. We were really, really excited about that as sort of the thread, the story element of this forest that ties everything together. It also was about comfort, and Phil would tell you that a lot of our conversations early on were just about guest comfort. A place that you would want to go and just sit and relax and hear the birds and people watch, right? A little bit of that DNA it's still Disneyland. If you go there, it's just beautiful sitting in Orleans Square and listen to, watch the riverboat go by, listen to the band in Orleans Square. That's my whole park. And so I think when we came up, we started designing for the Magic Kingdom, there was a little bit of that inspired me and the team as well. We thought, it's at the heart of Fantasyland. It's a park. It's a place you want to go and just relax and be able to decompress a little bit. It's guest comfort. And that's why there's waterfalls, there's trees, there's the birds. We try to create an environment that just is relaxing. And so that was one of the elements that really led us to go down that, not just from a story standpoint, looking at our animated feature, but also a place that our guests can enjoy physically.
And Bill, as a 41-year cast member, you had the vantage point of seeing the first Fantasyland come out of the ground, and now this aspect that we're calling new Fantasyland. Does it meet or exceed your expectations, and how do you feel it works with the existing Fantasyland?
Yeah, that's an easy one. I would tell you, over the 41 years, every time I've been part of a Disney opening, and I've had the great opportunity to be a part of many of our openings around the world, there is something very special about every one. But I think you go into every one knowing that you're not quite sure what it's going to be until you get that moment where your cast and guests have the chance to kind of come together and show you how this rich storytelling is going to play out. So I think, as hopefully all of you have already experienced, my first experience was very much in the early previews, where we did get a chance, of course, to have our cast members with their families come through, take a look, experience it, because, of course, our cast members are arguably going to be the best advocates for us, but they could always be our best critics. They're going to see those things. They're going to know what the guests really want. So I can tell you, overwhelmingly, through those previews, we continue to get the reinforcement that this is absolutely one of the best things that we could have ever done in Fantasyland, arguably within the Magic Kingdom. So it was a home run from the beginning, I would say.
So Chris, WDI, as we call you, Walt Disney Imagineering, is known for going to great lengths to create authentic experiences, adding all sorts of levels of detail. What are some of the things that the team did to ensure that new Fantasyland would be one for the ages?
Great question. And this is one I always love to answer, because we take great pride in the details. And I'll use the circus as an example. For the circus, we really wanted to capture that golden era, the 1940s sort of era of the circus, and that it's sort of also the age of Dumbo. That's when the Dumbo film was supposedly set. So we traveled up to Baraboo, Wisconsin, which is the home of the Ringley Museum. It was their winter headquarters, and they have the largest collection of circus wagons in the world. Water for Elephants was actually being shot there when we went up to visit doing research. And most of the wagons in the film, Water for Elephants, were on loan from the Ringley Museum. And it's about an hour outside of Baraboo, or outside of Madison, Wisconsin. Beautiful little town, beautiful picturesque setting. We went in the middle of summer, so the weather was just perfect. And they have probably a warehouse the size of a football field, and it was full. And we literally took decks, color chip decks, and our phones and our cameras, and we climbed through every wagon, and they thought we were crazy. We were climbing through circus wagons, and we were crawling underneath, taking pictures of bold details, and we're matching color chips up on the wall, and I think we only got approached 2 or 3 times as to smell the grease and the gears. And so you go to Storybook Circus, and look at those wagons, those color palette, the color palette, every one of those wagons, that's pulled from Baraboo. That we matched to an existing wagon that was probably made almost a century ago. So and we love doing that. We love those types of field trips or research trips where we can really, like I said, fall in love with those intimate little details and be able to then translate those into what we get to deliver to our guests and let our guests then have that experience.
What about West Wing?
Oh, the West Way. The West.
My favorites.
Yeah, well, Beauty and the Beast, I mean, like you said, your team sit and watch the film over and over, you really be inspired by the movie. You know, we have the great fortune at Walt Disney Imagineering to have the animation research library right across the street. So we, at a drop of a hat, can walk across the street, walk in, go into the archives room, and pull out the background paintings for Beauty and the Beast, the background paintings for The Little Mermaid. We did this all the time. And we would go in and sit down and look at the animation, the animation sketches, early sketches of what was the artist thinking when he was developing the look of the castle. Their early roughs and things that didn't even get into the film. And so for Beauty and the Beast, we're just gonna watch that film 100 times. We had lunch meetings where it was like, if it's Thursday, it's Beauty and the Beast day, and the movie was on. And but it was just, the team did a great job of just combing through that film, really to find those iconic elements that you would expect if you crossed that bridge and you entered into the Beast Castle. And so once again, it's the research, it's the details that we really fall in love with.
So this question I'll ask each of you. Do you have a favorite aspect of New Fantasyland? And I know that's always a tough one for any Disney cast member to ask, but gotcha.
Yeah, so for me, and Chris and I have talked about this, and we do have some similar opinions. I sort a little differently because I see a great deal of the experience right now because of the age of the grandchildren, right? So we all experience, I think, these wonderful stories that Disney created through our experiences and through our parents and through our kids. So for right now, the Enchanted Tales of Belle, hopefully all of you got a chance to immerse yourself into that. I mean, that is walking into the story. So, to be able to do that and see the expression, on all of those children that are in there, and plus the adults that are, joining into the show to participate, is like something I've never experienced before. So I think that's certainly, for me, one of the standouts.
Well, you know what I'm going to say. It's not hard for me. It's Be Our Guest Restaurant. And I love it. I love the West Wing and how it's a little dark in there, and you can really feel like the Beast's anger when you're sitting in that room, and when you sit out in the main ballroom with the snow falling. The immersiveness of that experience and how fabulous the food is. That's amazing.
And I love the fact that the 3 rooms have 3 distinct personalities,
Yes.
3 very distinct personalities. So it's a fantastic facility. And Chris, now it's your turn. You're last to order from the menu.
It's an impossible question to answer. I was told there that I hate that question, right? Because I get asked it all the time. It's like, well, how do you choose one of your favorites? Right?
Exactly. How do you choose among your kids?
There is something about each one that is a favorite element. Like the outside of the Little Mermaid attraction, the castle is spectacular, the waterfalls, it's the placemaking, the tone that is set, the detail, the patina, the age. It's to me, it's probably of all the exteriors, it's probably my favorite. For me, our guests, it's the ballroom. To walk in there, and it's something that we get to enjoy as cast members, to be able to walk into a space like 3 a.m. in the morning, and there's no one there, and you just stand there. And it's amazing. But I'm with Phil. I think that Enchanted Tales of Belle, probably my favorite one. And I hope it's not the place, it's not the, I get what you're talking about. It's not the place, it's not the special effects, it's not walking through the portal, it's not the wardrobe, it's not Lumiere. It's what it brings to the guests, the experience. Because you can go through that show, and it's a different show every time. It's funny one show, and then you come back around, and they pick the smallest little child who as the Beast, and he barely roars, and it's touching. I mean, and whether it's your child or not, to me that's probably my favorite part of the expansion. It's not the physical manifestation of that building, but it's what it delivers as part of the guest experience. So I'm with Bill. I think Enchanted Tales of Belle probably raises my eyes.
I think what Chris would also say, the other conversation we had was around is not just looking forward for the sake of looking forward, but truly you've all had a chance to get a little bit of a behind-the-scenes glimpse of what the Seven Dwarfs Mine Coaster is going to be about, right? So I think he and I both, again, family-friendly, right in the heart of the park, going to be something arguably that we've never seen before, done before, So it is, again, this great anticipation for another magical experience that frankly I think families of all ages are going to really enjoy.
Well, you just took me to my next question, which was going to be, what's next? So great segue there, touching upon the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, right in the middle of New Fantasyland. Was that particularly challenging, or is it something that you kind of look forward to because it brings us back and truly to the heart of the land?
Yeah, it's challenging. Trust us, it's extremely challenging. It will be the centerpiece of the Fantasyland expansion when we're finished in New Fantasyland, and for a number of different reasons, it will be unique and different and spectacular. It will. I like to say, it will transform this land yet again in 2014. And so we're really looking forward to that. I'd say some of the challenges have just been, we want to make sure, it's like everything we do here at Disney and within Imagineering, we want to make sure we pick the right story, the right ride system to help tell that story. Make sure it's unique, make sure it delivers upon that promise of, classic business storytelling. And the Mine Train will do that. Whether it's the uniqueness of a little swinging bucket, or the fact that this coaster weaves through the woods, like, and up over the mountains, and then turns into a dark ride, and the dwarves are inside, and the dwarves are going to be amazing. When do you see the dwarves? They're spectacular. And so we're excited to share all that, but it really will, all those things make it very difficult. The technology of building a coaster no one's ever built before. We own the patent of it. It's exclusive to us, Disney. So that's a challenge. Building on the site where we want to make sure it's open and all of our guests are experiencing all the wonderful things around it, that's a challenge. Creating figures in new ways, with innovative ways of storytelling through technology is always a challenge. But it's what we do as Imagineers and as Disney, really to deliver to our guests. So it's a challenge that's exciting.
But I think, it goes without saying that, to bring, the princesses in the shadow of Cinderella's, castle, is arguably just has to be done, right? So as we were going through, again, blue sky work, on a broad screen, what are the, where do you go next? What would be the right thing in the legacy of this great, this great park? So, it's, I think, going to be another great addition, but probably for the reasons that we all think about. It's just, that's where they should be. That's their home. That's the perfect setting for them, and I think you will, again, enjoy that just as much.
Well, we have a couple of minutes to open it up to the floor for questions, and I just want to say how much I've enjoyed listening to the three of you, because together they so well represent the story behind New Fantasyland, all of the disciplines involved in bringing it to life. Any questions from the floor? Please raise your hands, and we have our cast members with microphones who will come to you so that we can all hear your question. We have three over here, and this gentleman here. We'll start with you.
Okay. Huge fan of Beauty and the Beast, so happy to see so much of it. But I was curious, you could have just done the restaurant, people would have loved it. You could have just done the Bells and Chantilly, people would have loved it. How did you end up deciding to go so into Beauty and the Beast and kind of have that sort of mini world of it?
You're right, we could have just built the restaurant, and then, we could have done the tavern from Rapunzel, let's say, and that could have been, it's called the Ugly Duckling or Snuggly Duckling or something. We could have done that. Matter of fact, we talked about that early in the Blue Sky. I think I have a drawing of that someplace. I always like to design in threes, right? And you'll hear that even filmmakers, if you look at sometimes films, they always use, it's always things are in thirds, and we definitely knew the restaurant was going to be the anchor. We knew that was early on. We fell in love with the concept of the Be Our Guest restaurant. Enchanted Tales with Belle, really, how could you not have that little cottage nestled up in the shadow of the castle? And when we play tested early on, we play tested a bunch of different experiences with our princesses. The Belle experience we thought had the broadest range. It had characters that everyone knew and loved, and had Lumiere and the wardrobe, and so we we thought, that, as far as trying to reinvent what that meet greet experience is, that gave us, we thought, our best opportunity to do that, make it successful, and create an experience that our guests would cherish and really react to positively. And so those two elements quickly always linked together. I don't think we ever had any other ideas other than those two. I mean, early on, those were sort of locked in stone. And the village, we know we wanted to have a little merchandise experience, and we wanted it to be charming, and we wanted it to be, sort of the tie between Mermaid and on the other side. And so with the bookshop, what better place, it's the opening number of the film, and so you end up with really kind of three elements. You have the little village, you have the cottage, and you have the beast castle. And so it's always, to me, it was always that trifecta. And you're right, we could have probably picked some other themes, but we thought, I think the design team really wanted you to be able to stand there and have that breadth, that view into, everybody, as you kind of pan, you never sort of broke out of Beauty and the Beast until you sort of, wandered up that path and made it to Belle's Village, and then you kind of turn the corner, and then it's Mermaid, and then you see all, then it's, we sort of wipe the screen and we bring the next, we bring in that next theme. So I like the idea of not doing so many little designs, but maybe doing these a little bit bigger, broader brush strokes of content, and that was really kind of, we always sort of designed that way. I think when the coaster is finished, when we finally finish Salvador's Mine Train, that will really you'll really start to see what I'm talking about. Because you'll be able to walk through the castle wall, and the first image will really be the mine train. But you'll get to see a little peek of Eric's castle in the background. You'll see the beast castle above the trees. It's those things that draw you back, draw you deeper down the path, that beg you to go and explore and wander that path. It's storytelling. And so that's really the reason behind it. And I think as a designer, and I can tell you the design team can probably tell you the same thing, when you start breaking those elements all up and you make it too, you have too much chatter, I don't feel like you can settle into that story. So it felt like it needed, this is such a great film, you cannot go because it's out. You have to. So anyway, it's a long explanation.
Next question.
Hi, my name is Molly Gold, and the question that I have for you is about the fairies. I'm wondering if they're going to have a chance to show up at any point, because there's been so much recent reintroduction of the fairies in Tinkerbell's community with the movies and different things that I have a little princess who would love to see the fairies appear at some point. I know that they've sporadically done it at Epcot, which has been great to see them in the spring, which makes perfect sense, but we'd love to see them year round. So I'm wondering if they might have a chance to get on the block at some point for design.
Well, hopefully, currently you can enjoy seeing them over in Adventureland. So, we're happy to always have had them as a part of the opportunity in the Magic Kingdom, because I agree they're just a beautiful ongoing opportunity. I think, the challenge is to continue to think about the great storytelling and placement. So I can tell you, Chris is probably on to version 17 of what's the best way to tell that story.
This is why I picked it, though.
Yeah, so it is very high on the list. It is with great passion, and I think we share your vision of that.
We're always, and as you know, we're always looking for new ways to immerse our guests and meet those characters. We know they're very, very popular. And Phil is correct. We're working on ideas, nothing to share, nothing to promise, but
Always working on new ideas. Next question.
Hi, a quick question about whether this will always be called New Fantasyland, or eventually it will just be part of Fantasyland, just in terms of the name. And also, if somebody could comment on the line experience, that seems to be something that has been advanced with this, both at Dumbo and at the Under the Sea attraction, trying to entertain the guests while they're in line.
Yeah, I'll take the second one because I'm not 100% sure on the first one, so maybe one of my colleagues. Clearly, again, listening to the guests, I think all of us have experienced one of the things we have paid close attention to is guest comfort. I think Dumbo is absolutely the best, one of the best examples. So as you look at now, starting the storytelling earlier, is really what Chris's goal was, is trying to immerse you sooner or earlier. By way of that now, when you go to Dumbo, arguably the queue area has disappeared, right? You go into the storytelling, and for the parents and the kids, you have the opportunity to play and wait. So there's a concept whose time certainly has come, and I can tell you from first-hand experience, it couldn't be better received. I think kind of going forward as you see these other opportunities, whether it be Haunted Mansion, there's a few others we've done, continues to kind of resonate nicely with what guests expect and enjoy. So I think you'll continue to see more of that.
To answer your first question, I don't believe we really haven't talked about that. We're kind of celebrating the moment here today, and it is the new Fantasyland, and I don't know, maybe one day we'll decide to change it, but for right now, that's sort of, we're just happy with that, and that's what we're staying with.
We'll take 2 more questions.
I know that the Your Guest restaurant menu is going to be seasonal and it's going to change consistently, at least for dinner. Is that going to happen for lunch or dinner, just for dinner? We usually try to make some changes and updates about twice a year, and we'll probably stay with that at the end, and then try to keep it fresh.
Okay, next question toward the middle of the room. Was there someone who had a hand? Okay, great.
You say you start with a blank page when you design these things. Were there any concepts that you came up with that they just said, no, that's too far, that's too big?
This is great, because the answer is yes, but the answer is also sitting out there today, the mind train. So a lot of people ask questions, well, how did the mind train make it back into the mix? Why did we change? Was it too girl-centric? Were there too many princesses? The answer to that is no. The answer was the mind train, believe it or not, was one of the very first concepts we came up with when we sat down and we started talking about what kind of experiences we'd like to add to the Fantasyland. At the time, we really didn't know about how to make the swinging bucket work, and we didn't know, looking at the overall layout of the land, if it really fit right. And what's been great about this project, and I think great for our fans, is Imagineering sort of lifted the curtain a little bit, or probably earlier than we ever have before, and let you guys peek into a little bit of the behind the scenes. We've shared more than we normally have shared along the way, and I think that's great. I don't mind sharing. I think it's fun because we love having those interactions with our fans, and we love sharing because we're excited about it. So the mind train kind of fell out early in design, and I remember when Tom Staggs came on board, and one of Tom's very first meetings when he took over, took office, he came in and sat down and took me through all of Fantasyland, and he loved it. He said, wow, this is great, it's so immersive, you're breaking new ground, it's really, you're really kind of changing the guest experience. And at the end of the meeting, he asked one simple question. He goes, the same question you asked. Was there something you guys just would love to have done that you'd like to add back in? And we all looked at each other, and literally within a 24-hour period, we went back to what we said, the mind train. And we said, we think we can figure it out, we can do it, we can make it a great experience for our guests. And Tom was like, let's go do it. And it was that's great support from our leadership. We've had that all along the way to really bring you something that's very unique and very special. So it's true, that is, he asked the same question you asked, and we're glad because today, in a little over a year from now, we'll be able to share that experience with you, and it'll be really, really unique.
Well, with that spirit of let's go do it, we have a new Fantasyland that we will continue to enjoy for generations to come. And let's go do it. We'll be back in 2013 with Princess Fairy Tale Hall, and 2014 with Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Hope to see many of you along the way. I want to thank you for spending time with us this afternoon and learning more about